fit the reservoir, the master cylinder on. The switch is the connector. Put the old Badger on, like so. He is on, and let's get the master cylinder in place. I'm such a pro. Now your positioning is going to need a bit of fine tuning towards the end. So the longer of the two is going to go over to the left because it's got the furthest to travel. We need one long one and 3 washers. So one washer on, bolt through, another washer on to create the seal in between the 2 brake lines. And again, you want the shorter one now, and that piece of metal there, yeah, coming on a downward angle, and then you want the other washer on. Yeah, the washers keep the system fluid tight. So now we're gonna put this into the bottom of the master cylinder. Could really do with a second pair of hands, but I'll manage. Taffy is out walking the dog, so let's loosely do this up. So now we need to get the brake lines in. Brake lines are down. Now this is really experimental because obviously it's not meant for this bike, the master cylinder, but the brake lines are running down. Right, I'm going to tighten this up for a sec so everything doesn't move around so much. Right guys, a little while on, and I've cleaned up the brake discs, and yeah, they're kind of as clean as they're going to get for now. I cleaned them down with some wet and dry sandpaper, and then put some brake cleaner on them. The correct way to fit your caliper is have your bleed screw where it attaches to the hose at the top, and your fitting points to the outside. It's all ready to go. Just put them on. So on they go, like so. Put your bolt in and fix them up. And the other bolt in. First of all, just do everything up kind of loose before you tighten anything up too much. I'll just do these up. Hope you can see okay. Just putting in those long bolts that secure the brake caliper to the fork leg. So put one washer on like so, thread that through the top side, and on the bottom put your other washer on as well. So you've got a washer top and bottom, and then this washer is going to sit right up onto the brake caliper. Sorry for the squeaky chair. Right, so that one's on. So I'm just going to leave that one on there kind of loose like that, yeah, until I'm happy with the final position of everything. So that one, that's that side on, yeah, brake caliper on, 2 bolts in, and the bolts going through with the 2 washers either side of it. One side done. Let's do the other side. All right, I'll do the other side quickly and won't bore you with it, so I'm going to come back to it once I've done the other side. So that's the other side on. Hope you can see that. Yeah. You've got in here the tube, the intake tube, and if I adjust these cables over too far, as it goes on the opposite lock, those cables will hit against that, and it basically you won't get the full range of movement, which is bad. So we need to adjust them so that they're kind of not going to interfere, which is about there, I would say. I'd like to lock it off there. So I'm just tightening them off where I want the final resting place to be. I don't go crazy tight with these because basically what's happening is the little brass washers, if I can talk properly without slurring my words, compresses and crushes to create a fluid tight fit. So I've put this piece of rubber in and cable tied it on the frame, and then I've put the two hoses in there and I've put a cable tie around it. Bit excessive, to be honest, but they're not going to get in the way anywhere. So that's how I'm going to try that out for now. Now I just need to tighten off the tighten everything up now. So I need to get this in the right position. Now, as you can see, you know, we've got a bit of a clearance issue here. So we need to have it down just a little bit. I will perfect the last sit in place when I sit on the bike later, and get the final rest in place for sure. So we've tightened up the lower bolt there for the banjo bolt for the brake lines. We've got the brake lines held in their kind of position, but they can freely move there, no problem. I'm not restricting any movement, so that shouldn't interfere with anything. Now I just need to tighten these off, and I'm going to kind of have them where they're going to naturally lay, to be honest. I mean, you don't want them facing in towards the wheel or too far out. That for me is its kind of natural sitting place. So I'm going to tighten that off. I'm going to use the spanner just to get the initial slack taken up like so, and get the ratchet on it and just put a little squeeze on it. I'm putting in like a quarter turn there in total. That should be completely fine. I need to tighten off the main bolts that are holding the brake caliper in place. I'll do that last. Oh dear. Same again. That will do me. That is plenty tight enough. Tighten up the main bolts for the calipers, and then we can start bleeding the system. Yeah. That will do. That will do. That will do. I also need to check these two as well, make sure they're nicely tightened off, which I'm pretty confident they are. So that's that side done. I need to tighten these up. One, two, and the main bolts. Right, so we can get on with bleeding this system up. Okay, so now I've got all the calipers on, yeah, and we've got the hoses in place, we've got the master cylinder on, we've got the switch in place, we've got the reservoir bottle I've put back on, and I've used this green hose as a temporary fix. Now, I don't know if you can see this very well. Here's the nipple. You can't see bugger all, can you? Here's like the nipple for the reservoir, and here is my hose, and it's not really, this hose is a bit past its best, and it's not very flexible, and I think I'm going to end up putting a lot of pressure on the end fitting here where the hose fits. So I'm thinking the hose is clear. There goes my phone again. the hose is clear, it's not obstructing anything, I'm just going to fit the hose. But the only problem is now is getting the bloody fluid into this hose without making a bloody great big mess. I could fit the reservoir to it and pour fluid in it. So now I'm going to protect the bodywork. Yeah, let's protect the bodywork. Here we go, that'll protect it. There, that's my protection. What do you think? No? Okay, maybe not. So I can get fluid in there. Yeah, that'll work. That'll be alright, Grez. Right. Stick it around there so like any fluid that comes off of it don't go everywhere. So sticky in there like that. I'm going to be very careful with it. I'm not really going to be moving stuff around too much. I'm going to stick a bit more protection on than that. I'm not a complete prune. Alright guys, right, so now I'm going to also fit the rear brake, the replacement rear brake caliper, sorry, and the rear braided brake line as well. What I'm gonna do, actually my video ran out and I didn't catch all of the bleeding process on the front. What a bleeding pain that was. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fit the rear and I'm gonna show you how to bleed the rear. The only difference is that you would bleed both sides, obviously, on the front. Usually I bleed on the left hand side first, and then I move on to the right hand side, bleeding out. But it's the same process basically, so I'm not going to waste your time. I've given you way too much to watch on these on this brake upgrade series. So yeah, I'm going to just fire on and get this done basically. I've had it apart, I've cleaned it up, I've degreased it and got it all nice and clean, and it's ready for fitting on the bike. Right, I'm going to probably fast forward through this, guys, so you can just kind of watch it as I go. And yeah, I'll put some nice elevator music in the background. How's that? All right, right, let's get this done. Come on. Right, so as you can see, the brake caliper is off, and yeah, it's looking a bit sorry for itself. This is all going in the bin, and this one is going to go on here. So let's do that now. Let's have a bit of more of a clean up though of the brake disc before we put the new one on. Right, so all you do is get a bit of cloth and splash it all over, just like Brute 45, and get the disc nice and wet, and make sure there's no brake fluid on that disc. So that is that cleaned up. Let's get the new one on. Make sure the pads are pushed apart and you've got room for the disc. And yeah, got some nice new bolts as well. Let's slot them on like so. So I won't bore you with the reassembly of this. It's pretty straightforward. Just put these two on, put the new hose in place and on, should I say, and yeah, Bob's your uncle really, and then we'll start bleeding it. Make sure I got the right way around here. I think it's like that. One washer through, one washer underneath, one washer on top and underneath. Put him on. Like so. And what the difference you've got, I mean, on the back here, that is kind of located underneath this, and that is kind of stopping it from going around that way. But on the standard hose, you also have a locating pin which sits in between these two holes here, or sits in between those pieces there, shall I say. There's nothing like that on the braided kit. So basically, you're just kind of putting it in there and having it run kind of straightish, you know, on that kind of angle. And again, let's just do them up kind of loose-ish and check it over. All looks good. So I'm going to tighten that off now. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. So tighten it up and like a quarter turn, yeah. It's only so you're compressing those copper washers. You don't want to tighten them too much, because you'll just squash them big time. And again, quarter of a turn, that will do. So that is now ready for bleeding. I will show you the bleeding process. So with the bleeding, I bought one of these bleeding hoses, yeah, and it's literally it's got a non-return valve on the end here, excuse me, and obviously it's clear as well, so you can see there's any air bubbles in the system. Take off the bleed nipple cover, yeah, and place it on the bleed nipple, like so, yeah, see that? And I'm going to push down this little piece of plastic which will basically hold the hose on the bleed nipple and make it kind of fluid tight, and it shouldn't flow away anywhere. Make sure your brake reservoir is nice and clean. Any dirt and grime, just chuck some 4-dot brake fluid in. And the main thing with this is just making sure you keep it topped up and you don't let this reservoir go empty, because as soon as it goes empty it will suck air into the system, and then we need all the air out of the system. So now we just got to keep bleeding it until we got all the air out of the system. So all you do simply, this is unlock, this is lock, yeah. So we press down on the lever, unlock, relock, let go of the lever, yeah. Push down on the lever, unlock, relock. You can unlock and give it a bit of a pump, but it doesn't really do much. This is quite a frustrating process, to be honest, and it always feels a bit slow, but it takes forever to get going, and then all of a sudden it just starts working as you want it to. This actually pumping it like that, all it does really is actually put more air, or it mixes all the air up. Is not a great thing to do, but if you really want to get the fluids flowing, it's not a bad way of getting you started. Right, so that is it basically, guys. You just keep bleeding it out, and if you have problems, it took me a couple of hours, to be honest, to get all the air out of the system. I really thought there was a problem with the master cylinder, but it was not. There wasn't a problem. I convinced myself there was, but there wasn't. It's just perseverance. It can take a long time. This is kind of old school method, really, of just fitting a tube on. See, I've still got some air coming out now. It does take quite a time to get the air out. I tend to bleed it and see that I've got all the air out, and then I might ride it for a day or two and give it another bleed, because you do get air stuck in the system, but it is a bit of a headache. You can buy other bleed systems where you would literally put it on and you pull the fluid through the system. It is much easier, it's much quicker. They're not exactly cheap. I'm not sure how much they are in saying that for a kit, but I'm used to doing it this way. This hose has just got a non-return valve on, but you can just buy a plain piece of tube. I was looking for a plain piece of tube, but this is all I could find, the cheapest on the eBay, but it's got a non-return valve, which isn't bad. It stops the air going back into the system. And it's got this little plastic plate with a hole which you pull over the top of the bleed nipple and the hose, and it kind of creates an airtight seal on there. So that is it basically, guys. That's how you do it. Really thoroughly recommend upgrading the front brake calipers in the way I did. They really are much more powerful now, and the master cylinder is great as well. Lots and lots more power, slightly less feel, but really definitely worth it from a braking power standpoint. So yeah, braided front and rear brake hoses, ZX10R or 1400, they're the same brake calipers. R1 master cylinder. I'm using a HRC hose there as a reservoir at the moment. I would change that. I've got another one actually now, a proper hose with bottle, which I'll put back on there, I think, because that looks a little bit weird. I think I'll also replace this hose with that hose and lose the old worn out hose there, just to make it look a bit nicer, and that's a pretty straightforward job. So yeah, I would just keep on bleeding the system until I'm completely happy, and yeah, just keep topping up the reservoir bottle basically, and that is all there is to it, guys. So happy riding. I hope you've enjoyed the videos. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ride safe. Cheers all. Thanks. Bye.